In 1998, the film Small Soldiers was released. The story, if you didn't know, is about two toy lines that come to life thanks to an advanced military chip, putting the lives of two families and their creators in jeopardy. While the film didn't do well critically, it has received a cult following in recent years. But just like all films, it had an original draft that contained a few key differences to the finished product. And that's what I'm going to read to you now. However, I'm not going to explain the differences between both versions of the film. If you haven't watched the film, you probably won't know what I'm talking about most of the time. In other words, I'm telling you to watch the film and then come back and watch this video. So sit back, relax, get a nice cup of tea, or if you're one of those freaks, coffee, as I begin the story. So if this video seems too long for you, I can't help you. Sorry. The film begins on a small barn where we meet Mel Noseberry and his wife, Aline Noseberry, doing their morning chores. We later meet their teenage son, Alan Noseberry, who, unlike his parents, isn't exactly happy with his home life. After a cow manages to escape, we see that this barn is actually set in a modern day, well, modern in a 90s way, suburban street. The Noseberry's house sticks out because of this. We then cut to one of the more modern homes, where we see a commercial being played advertising a new toy from Crumpco, a toy called the Belch Brigade. We move away from the TV and meet Charity Fimble, a typical American teenager. We later meet her mum, Phyllis Fimble, and her grandmother, Granny Fimble. We then meet Phil Fimble, a dentist who works in a separate wing of his house. Unlike the Noseberries, the Fimbles are a more stereotypical example of the American family. The cow that escaped earlier starts eating the front garden. Phil notices this and storms down the street with it to the Noseberries' house, along with his wife and daughter. He starts arguing with Mel. We find out through dialogue that Mel used to have a normal lifestyle before changing it for, in his own words, a simple one. Despite this, Phil still wants them out of his neighbourhood and is willing to start a petition to get rid of them. We also find out that Alan, embarrassed by the whole situation, has a crush on Charity, but she clearly doesn't think much of him. We then cut to what at first appears to be a child's bedroom, but we later find out it's an office which belongs to Erwin Breeze, a computer geek who suffers from agoraphobia, a disorder where someone is afraid of situations where escape might be difficult or help might not be available. Quick little shout out to Google for giving me the answer to that. Anyway, as such, he pretty much lives where he works. As we see him coming out of his office in his pyjamas to the toilets, one of his co-workers, Larry Schickel, another computer geek, only he's trying to be more of a cool geek, has a habit of teasing him. One joke he pulls on Erwin involves filming him going to the toilet reading a comic book and showing it to the other employees in the building. Why everyone finds this funny and not creepy is never answered. We then cut to the Mars Tech building, where we meet the owner, Gil Mars, the richest man in the world, who has recently bought Crumpco. He walks into the boardroom where Larry and Erwin are presented. Despite being bestsellers, Mars is not impressed by the Belch Brigade toys. He demands the production of a new toy line, Smart Toys. Each action figure will be programmed with the help of an AI microchip that will make the toys walk, talk and fight each other. He commissions both Larry and Erwin to produce two types of toys. Erwin's toys are going to be monster based, while Larry's toys will be military action figure based. Whichever toy line sells best will go into full production, setting up a competition for the two developers. We then return to Alan, where we find him at school. In his class is Charity. Along with them are Marshall, Alan's only friend, and Chuck, a jock who is Charity's boyfriend. When the class ends, Alan sees his father outside the school to pick him up on a horse-ridden carriage, much to Alan's embarrassment. Back to the Noseberry's house, we find Eileen secretly watching TV in the storm cellar, Looks like Alan isn't the only one who misses the modern world. When she hears the boys return, she hides the TV and rushes back into the kitchen. Alan sulks into his room while Mel and Eileen talk. We find out Mel and Eileen were always kind of rebellious against modern times, and Mel wishes to bond with Alan more. Alan Moore. While in his room, we find that Alan has a secret stash of modern world collectibles, one of them being a walkie-talkie, which he uses to talk to Marshall, and binoculars, which he uses to creepily spy on Charity. You gotta remember, he is a teenager. Just then he hears a knock on the door and Mel walks in with a log that he intends to build a boat from, for Alan's school project. During the next couple of scenes, we see both Erwin and Larry developing their toy lines, each one doing something different. Erwin is a bit more traditional with his craft, while Larry just lets a group of artists and different technologies do the work for him. This intercuts between Mel making the boat and Phil getting neighbours to sign his petition. During this sequence, Erwin comes across the AI chip which will be implanted in the toys. Gil Mars reminding Larry that the toy presentation is the day after tomorrow, causing Larry to panic. This results in Larry hacking into Erwin's files and copies his monster doll blueprints, merging them with a weapons program he was developing. The sequence ends with Mel and Alan finishing the boat, Erwin finishing his monster doll, and Larry finishing his military action figure. Later that night, the Noseberries are greeted by the Fimples and 2 police officers. Thanks to Phil's petition, the city council has decided that the Noseberries' house is a hazard, and that Alan's well-being might be in jeopardy. Being asked to attend a city meeting, Mel and Eileen agree to attend it, worried about losing custody over their son. Back at the Mars Tech building, Larry and Erwin are presenting their toys. Larry presents the Commando Subversives, a 10-man set of action figures, each one with their own name and speciality, led by Chip Praddock. Ewan's toys are the Gorgonites, a race of monsters who will fight to defend their castle, led by Archfiend, Archer for short. Since Larry based the commandos on Erwin's blueprints, all the toys are presented with voice commands, response monitors, GPSs and a death button which can immediately destroy them. Gil is impressed with what he sees and chooses Alan's hometown to be the testing place for the toys to be sold. Little do any of them know, the Chip Praddock toy that Larry presented with his presentation starts moving towards the Archer toy, with the intention of fighting and destroying it. But he is unintentionally stopped by Larry. At a shopping mall, nearing Christmas, we see adults and kids buying the new smart toys like crazy. We also get a chance to see some of the other toys, including Commandos, Rock Hardcliffe, Chase Dragstrip, Buzz Flat Top, and more Gorgonites, Freakenstein, Insaniac, Scarpus, Eyeballhead, and Warto. We also see that there's a raffle to win 2 of the toys. Alan and Marshall are at the store filling in one of the cards to win. Meanwhile, one of the commandos, called Kip Killcrazy, has been brought. We later see that the whole Mars Tech staff are watching all this on a special monitor. Returning to the mall, Alan finds out from Marshall that Charity and Chuck have broken up. Seeing this as a chance to ask her out, Alan and Charity have an awkward but cute conversation, until our mall intercom tells him that he's won the toy raffle. Humiliated, he runs from Charity and gets a Chip and Archer toy. Back in his room, Alan isn't impressed with the toys, but while he leaves them alone, both Chip and Archer come to life and start fighting each other. Outside, Alan notices this, and when he gets back to his room, he sees Chip has a leg missing and jumps out the window. The Chip toy runs into the neighbourhood until a rubbish bag gets dropped on him. Alan, meanwhile, finds the Archer toy in pieces and starts putting him back together. After doing that, Archer starts talking to Alan, saying the house is now the Gorgonite's castle that he must defend, much to Alan's dismay. Back on the street, Chip has escaped the rubbish bags and uses a chicken drumstick to replace his missing leg. Pressing a button, he starts activating all the other commandos to aid him in taking over the Gorgonite's castle. Using the Fimbul's household as his headquarters, Chip makes his way through the house without being seen, until he gets accidentally thrown into Granny Fimbul's room, scaring her and leading into a brief fight between the two. While this is happening, we find out that Charity and Chuck have gotten back together. Alan, while doing his homework, sees this and him and Archer start talking. Archer wants to defend his new castle, while Alan tries to get him to correctly say his name. Meanwhile, we start seeing different commandos activating and making their own way to the town. We cut back to Archer, who after inputting himself into Alan's computer starts downloading new information into his software. And while the Noseberries are preparing dinner, Archer notices the commandos. With no time to lose, he activates the other Gorgonites to help him. We cut back to Mars Tech, where Erwin notices that most of the commando toys are gathering together in a singular spot. We then see the commandos have turned Granny Fimbul's room into a little army camp, as she is tied up in a chair. We cut back to Alan's room as his parents leave for the council meeting. Alan gets a call from Marshall telling him that Charity and Chuck have once again broken up. Seeing this as a chance to talk to her, he heads to the mall. While all this is going on, we keep seeing Archer breaking into the Fimbul's house to spy on the commandos, who have successfully built an army. Unfortunately, they see Archer. Back at the mall, Alan and Charity have a tender moment which ends with a kiss. Unfortunately for Alan, Chuck sees this and starts beating him up. We cut to the city council meeting, but it's pretty boring, so let's just cut back to Archer trying to escape the commandos. All of this is being witnessed by Erwin and Larry, who decide that they need to go there, much to Erwin's dismay. Alan, with a black eye, is walking home until Archer finds him. The commandos start attacking Alan, but he is saved by the other Gorgonites, who have turned the Noseberries' home into a fortress. A battle between the commandos and the Gorgonites takes place, ending with the Gorgonites victorious. Erwin and Larry start heading to Alan's town to help himself. Erwin has a giant box over his head to trick his brain into thinking that he's still in the office. At this point of the film, we see the commandos turning a bunch of Cindy dolls into reinforcements. While Chip starts listening to an argument between Charity and Chuck, finding out that Alan will do anything for Charity. This gives him the idea to use Charity as bait. While this is all happening, the Noseberries, along with the Fimbles and the council members, arrive to inspect the Noseberries' house. The commandos manage to kidnap Charity, and after seeing her as a giant Cindy doll, have some unpleasant plans for her. After sending a photo of her to Alan, he, Archer and a few Gorgonites head off to rescue her. After stopping the commandos from turning her into a giant Cindy doll, Alan and Charity bump into Erwin and Larry. After catching up with everything, they realise that this ambush was just a decoy. By using Granny Fimbul's wheelchair, the commandos managed to infiltrate the Noseberries' house, holding the Noseberries, the Fimbles and the council members hostage. They then plan to blow up the house. Trying to get into the house, our heroes are ambushed by the commandos with flaming golf balls. This results in the box on Erwin's head getting damaged, causing him to get rid of it. Without the box, Erwin finally sees the beauty of the outside world, while we also see Larry does care about Erwin in his own strange way. Yeah, a bit of an awkwardly placed moment in a pretty, action-packed scene, but the script kind of acknowledges this. Anyway, thinking up a plan to stop the bomb, they find a way into the basement where the bomb and the hostages are. This all results in a final battle between the toys, ending with a one-on-one duel between Archer and Chip. During the struggle, Chip falls into a coal burner, and Archer, using his kill switch to stop the bomb. A now burnt Chip tries to reactivate it, but he is finally destroyed by Charity. The remaining commandos are shut down by the timely arrival of Gil Mart, who Larry called earlier, using a master control remote to shut them all down. Collecting all the Gorgonite parts and giving them to Alan, he and Mel have a little father and son moment, apologising for making Alan go through the old time lifestyle. The film ends similar to the final movie, where Alan, with a newly rebuilt Archer, saying goodbye to each other as he and the other Gorgonites head off in Alan's boat for a new home. The only difference is Charity is there to witness this, and some of the Cindy dolls join the Gorgonites, who actually manage to find a new home in Central Park in Manhattan. And that was the original draft to Small Soldiers. As you can tell, there's a lot of differences between this and the finished film. I would recommend reading this yourself, as I did quickly go over some certain scenes. One thing I just want to point out is while Joe Dante did end up directing the film, this draft has a lot more influences from the Gremlins film than the actual film, especially with how the toys talk to each other. In this script they speak in a more broken English, while in the final film they spoke more in complete sentences. I noticed that the first draft also has a stronger anti-technology message compared to the final film. And I don't know about you lot, but could you imagine most of the cast from the film in this draft? Some of them I can imagine, but others, not too much. But as I said, the best thing to do is to read this yourself and make your own decision. Let me know if you wanted to see this version of the film, or if you prefer the film as it is. That's all I can say for now. Until next time, cheerio.